Welcome to Stop Overthinking, the podcast for overthinkers, people pleasers, and perfectionists who want to feel calm and confident enough to handle whatever life sends your way. I'm your host, Kristen, a women's life and mindset coach, lifelong educator, and recovering perfectionist. Welcome back to the Stop Overthinking podcast. I have a guest with us today, Analise Garcia. We are going to be talking about filling from an empty cup, what happens when you're running on empty, some quick strategies on just how to get into a better mindset and feel happier. So there's going to be lots of little takeaways in this episode. And Analise is a fellow mompreneur of two. She created the Mommy Mindset podcast to connect and build with other ambitious mamas who want to make their dreams come true. She is a mommy mentor to other moms who feel like they are meant for more. She believes in coming together, and with the right mindset, we can accomplish more than we think. She mentors moms who want to achieve more and provides resources to help master your mindset in motherhood. So welcome, Analise. We're excited to have you today on the Stop Overthinking podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Kristen, for having me on here. I'm really excited.
So everybody has a story about how they get into this work and this journey. Would you share a little bit with us and the listeners what brought you to creating this podcast and mentoring moms?
So I love this question because I was a young mom. I was a teen mom. So that is a whole thing in itself of like, I'm still growing up. But I was very lucky having a lot of support from everyone. But see, that was like a stigma on me. It's like, oh, teen mom, she's going to just go pop out more babies. But I did the opposite. I finished high school in honors. I went to college, finished that, and graduated on time. So I didn't let that stop me. I was obviously kind of jumped into motherhood really, really early, and like all the learning curves that comes in. But I've always been obsessed with personal development, mindset, and just really understanding who you are and like stepping into that person and like your goals and what you want. So I really dived deep into that after college, and I was becoming part of like groups and masterminds, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world of learning your mindset, learning who you are, self-awareness. And then with all that, I was implementing that as a mother too, trying to figure it out. Because really, no matter what age you are as a mother, you're still trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And then I started podcasting during COVID with my sister for fun. It was just for fun. And I was like, oh my gosh, I actually really like this. And I feel like I have like my story to tell as a mom, and like learning the personal development and learning how to effectively set goals and not just kind of settle in motherhood like we tend to do because of the demanding task and environment that it is. So I decided 8 months pregnant with my second, I was like, I'm just going to go full force and start the Mommy Mindset podcast, and actually wanting to the passion of helping women, specifically moms, understand that you are a person and your identity outside of motherhood and anything else, and knowing who that person is because of the lost identity in motherhood. And then from teen mom to surprise second baby to podcast, I had 2 businesses that I had started right before COVID as well. So just learning that and the learning curves that it takes to actually step into an entrepreneurship journey, I was like, oh my gosh, like mindset is the biggest thing in that, in just developing a better life and motherhood. So that's what I wanted to focus on, was helping other women build their mindset, and especially moms, because sometimes we get kind of sidetracked and push ourselves back to the corner. So long-winded answer, but for sure. I just absolutely love connecting and helping, other women with their mindset.
And we have that in common. And I would just offer to our listeners who are not moms, either empty nesters or you're not there yet, I still think you are going to find some value in this podcast because a lot of these things just apply to being a woman as a whole, and especially if you're working outside the home. But as I've talked about many times, the socialization, the culture, pressures on women to be all, do all. Oftentimes it's a lot. Analise has some great podcast episodes as well. So I was listening to some of those, and I think that there are definitely elements that I just wanted to share that are the same general idea of mindset that I have, but also she's got a new take on it and some different ways of saying things. One of your episodes that really resonated with me was when you were talking about filling from an empty cup. Why don't you just recap that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I love that you listen to the podcast. I often see it again, no matter what your season and what your journey is, your circumstances are, there will be a time in your life that you will be filling from an empty cup. It might not be kids, but it will be your partner, work, your career takes a lot out of you, maybe your family. So no matter who you're filling into someone or a group of people, like almost every day. And no matter what your circumstances are, that season that we're sitting in when we really feel empty. And empty can mean alone, maybe, but also more unfulfilled. We just feel like we have a void. We're kind of like, some people say, like we're in a funk, and we're just feeling and still running on autopilot. But we know deep down, okay, this is like a weird season for me. I'm just not feeling lit up. I'm not feeling aligned. I feel out of whack. And so, all these feelings in that season, it's normal. It's like just part of life. It's part of the ups and downs. And, you always hear the saying, oh, you can't fill from an empty cup. And I was like, yeah, that's very positive and, affirmations, yes. But then I knew there was something in that saying where I was like, I don't fully resonate with that because, yeah, you're not supposed to, but I have been. Like, I have been for a very long time. And I'm filling in my work and like trying to fulfill my desires, but then I'm also trying to be a mom and I'm trying to be a entrepreneur. I'm trying to do all these things and I'm filling up so many buckets right now. I feel really empty.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally came across where I'm actually having an empty cup right now and I'm still filling other buckets because I can't just stop. I can't just
Right.
cross
I
all.
so resonate with that.
And it's even though we want to, and that's where we start running on autopilot. And it's just like going through the day to day. And then for some people, that's like turning into depression and just spiraling. But if before we spiral and before all of this is normal, but before all that, that's where the self-aware and the mindset comes into play. It's like, okay, yes, I understand that right now I'm feeling empty. Let's try to be curious about that. Like, why? What happened? Did someone say something to me? What put me into this kind of spot? And it's not just one big thing sometimes, it's a bunch of little things. And it's over a period of time. And then that's when we kind of wake up one day and we're like, I'm just not feeling fulfilled or aligned in what I'm doing or who I'm surrounded with. And those are the two main things, really finding your passion and finding what lights you up. And it's not always going to work at the first time that you do it or try it. But continuing to find that thing. And what also helped, the second thing is putting yourself in those environments where they are going to lift you up and support you and light you up. Because it could be from, something traumatic in your life or a big shift in your life from moving, marriage, all these are big shifts. And sometimes we don't know how to kind of cope and now shift our identity because we cling to one thing. Then that's where sometimes we can feel empty.
Yeah.
or burnt out.
Mhm.
But just knowing that I'd like to normalize all of that. Like, because for so long I was like, oh, I'm doing something wrong because I feel like this. And like, what am I doing wrong? And I was putting the blame on me, where I found out a lot of other women was feeling the same thing. We feel very empty sometimes. So just knowing that that's normal, and that that's just kind of what we have to do. We have to push through that tough season and slowly fill up our cup
Mhm.
with different little things, because again, not one big thing, emptied our cup when it, at one time. It was over periods of time. So it's going to take small little things of changing your mindset, changing your habits, and just start implementing things that that will light you up. Does that answer your question?
It did, and it resonated with me when I heard it, in part because it was the season I was going through at that point too. There were some health challenges going on with my daughter, and there wasn't an option. And I think that happens when you're in a caregiver role, whether whoever that is. But something that is unique in that role that you can. I pulled back on work. I pulled back on coaching. I pulled back on things that I could, but there were pieces for me. I'm a single mom that still needed to happen. And I was running on empty, and nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants to stay there. I think we recognize it's not really healthy, but at the same time, to hold space that you're not you're not alone, that this does happen, and to not beat yourself up about doing something wrong, that you need to do more. And I think that's where the mindset and recognition of just being aware of the balance, because when you are running on empty, the idea of letting in all of this other self-care, I'm saying in quotes, to fill yourself up, it sometimes feels like an extra obligation, or you may just not have the time and the energy. So it is allowing that grace that I'm going to work through this. It's one day at a time, or the little pieces that you need. And like you said, really trying to be intentional to create space for that joy, whether that's just listening to music in the car, or maybe it's going for a walk and listening to the birds and just being in nature, even if these are 5 minutes. I think, like you said as well, when you were talking about it, like, we're having this conversation more in recognition that it's out there, not because anybody wants it, just a matter of life gets hard sometimes, and it is really hard to fill from the empty cup. And depending on your situation, you might still have these things that you're still doing and running. And we see you, we hear you, and it will not always be that way.
And I'm actually, being full transparency, I'm recovering, if that's the right word, from feeling from an empty cup. This year, it was just a big um transitional pivotal year for me, because I was just trying to implement so much, do and do and do, and nothing was working, nothing was sticking. Again, the first thing that we do is blame ourselves. It's not working out. I was very empty because in a sense I felt lost, and I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. The mindset was just all over the place. So, and I think that that's where I was looking and researching more into, okay, I am feeling from an empty cup right now. And like you said, it's not about, oh, I have to do more self care and I have to do all this. Cause yeah, it could just feel like a chore. And like when you're in that funk, when you're in that mindset, you don't want to do anything. Like you really don't. You just want to lay up on the couch, do nothing. And sometimes that's okay. But, I am now coming into a new season of filling my cup a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's not just doing all the self-care things of skincare and all that, but it's implementing better habits. It's taking out things that I really don't want to do, or that really are not serving me right now. And like how you mentioned, you had to, take care of your daughter and you had to pull back on things. That's exactly what I did. I pulled back. I really did like a big bird's eye view at the beginning of 2024. And I was like, honestly, as moms, as women, our health and fitness is so important. I honestly pulled back a whole lot on my fitness. I wasn't putting so much expectations on myself about, I have to hit the gym, I have to work out, because I was doing that to myself for so long, and then I wasn't hitting my goals, and then that's a whole spiral down because my cup was empty. I had no energy to really focus on that. So it's okay to pull back on certain areas of your life, of if it's work, if it's your passion projects, if it's, fitness, not your health. We don't want to pull back on our health, because if we don't have our health, we don't have anything. But I was intentional for the next 3 months. I was going to jump back on it, and I did what worked for me. So pulling back on things and like being okay with that and not feeling guilty about that is really, really big. And also just knowing that not everybody has it figured out. And like I said, for the most part, someone that you think has it all figured out, you have no idea. They're probably burnt out, because trying to do all the things is so hard. And I think that's just like the culture now of trying to do more, do all the things, do it all, be successful, be fit, and all that. It's really exhausting. But being intentional of what season you're in right now, or like accepting that and giving yourself grace, like you said, and just implementing tiny little things, tiny things. Like for me, it was journaling. It was simply how I was interacting with people and how I was carrying myself. Because we don't know how like others portray us, but I wanted to know, okay, even though I'm feeling a certain way or I'm feeling in a funk, I don't have to always operate from that. I can start showing up as, the person on the other side of this, and little by little. And it doesn't even have to be 100% every day, because it's not. Especially when you're, again, filling from an empty cup. It's, when you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed. It's just really knowing that your 40% that day is your 100%. And that's all you could give that day. And that's okay. Because let's say like our listeners are in this right now. So if you're currently in this season, something super simple, and I know it kind of sounds cliche, but just stay with me, is really being grateful and finding something good that happened that day. Something. Because I was doing this for myself, during that season last year. And it was really hard for me. It wasn't just like, write 3 things that I'm grateful for. No, it was really hard for me to really find that. And sometimes that it is hard to find the good in those hard seasons. But forcing yourself to finding the gratitude in each day, that's a whole mindset shift in itself. And if you continually do it day in and day out, then you'll slowly start to, shift your mindset and then show up as that person that you want to be.
Yes, and I agree so much with all of those. And it can just be those simple little things, right? Because it otherwise seems really overwhelming. And if you're a regular listener of this podcast, you know that I'm always talking about being intentional and knowing your values. And I think this is also a time when it's really helpful to have this figured out ahead of time. And for me, when I was going into this season, part of how I knew to pull back on different things, because I knew that my core values and what was really important to me, in my case, it's about living in integrity with who I am. It's my family, it's my health, and like work is not on that list for me, if I'm being honest. And so that was a time for me where it was like doing the bare minimum to get it done. Maybe it was asking for help and letting some other people know what was going on if it seemed like, I wasn't carrying my weight in other situations. But I knew that. So it was very easy for me to make some of those decisions. So just encouraging you to, of course, know what those values are. You can go back to the values podcast. But that's why you have those, is for when it comes time to make hard decisions, or when you feel overwhelmed or just burdened with a lot of things, you can set boundaries, make decisions, and it's so much easier. You naturally don't have that guilt because you know this is what I really need. Because if those are your core values, those are kind of the things that are filling you up anyway.
Have you heard of the rocks and the pebbles and the sand experiment?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And that's like exactly because, if we always say, oh, our plate is full, our plate is full. But the values and the core values, those are the things that we stick onto the plate. Like
the big ones that come first.
Not moving. Those are the values. That's what we live by, stand by. Yep. And so if we scrape everything off, that doesn't really matter, like you said. That's not part of our values, or that's not on top of the priority list. If we just scrape everything off because we can't do everything, then our core values stick there, and those are the things that you focus on during these hard seasons. Because that's what it is. It's you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling burnt out. It's because your plate is so full right now. And sometimes, yes, your obligations, your priorities is pulling you in different directions. But if you can know and really figure out for you what can you take off and scrape off your plate, because you know your values will still be there because that's what's important to you. That's another way to look at it too when you're going through this hard time. So that's what I did. Like you said, work, I kind of pushed it to the side right now because my mental health was more important, my family was more important, because those things are what I value. So really identify what those values are for you. It's funny because I also have a podcast episode on that too, because it's just so important. No matter who you are, your circumstances, having values, and that goes into your self-identity and being self-aware, that is what helps you, like you just said, get through these hard times. And I call it like back to basics. It's like, what's really important to you right now, and where do you want to go from here? And so that bridging the gap, those values is what's going to help you.
So I don't want this to be a downer episode for the whole entire thing. We're going to switch gears too. And this is another topic that I heard Analise talking about as well, that is kind of the flip side of this, or maybe even something you can integrate if you are filling from an empty cup. And these are 3 quick strategies to help you either get out of that funk. Maybe it's feel happier. Maybe it's just to kind of, calm your mind and come into the present. And so I'm going to let Analise talk about what these are. And these are things that you can quickly implement pretty much anytime, anywhere.
Yeah. So I came up with these 3 tips because I was taught them at a very, very young age. Like I was a child when I was taught this from the women in my life, and stuck with me throughout the years. And you hear all the big speakers, doctors talk about this, and it's like, oh, like my grandma taught me this. And it's so simple. Really, how you show up, how you carry yourself really, really dictates your mindset, because how you carry yourself, what you do, is the type of person you are. And it doesn't have to be such a outgoing, loud, happy, rainbows and sunshine person, but just feeling a little bit lighter, maybe just changing your mood, your mindset in that, point in time when those negative thoughts are trying to come at you. It's really simple. Take a breath. I mean, I still do this. I had to do this yesterday because I was about to lose it with my children. And it's just taking a breath. There's so much research, so many books, podcasts over breath work and all that. You can get deep with it. But it's just a deep breath. Like, it's crazy how much a deep breath can really calm you down, open you up, clear your mind. And so just taking a deep breath first will kind of stop you in your tracks, stop those negative thoughts from taking over. And then it's sitting up, because body language is another big indicator of how we're feeling, what we're thinking. And usually I'm, hunched over on our phones, or I'm writing a lot, so I'm kind of slumped down. I even try to be aware of this when I'm driving. It's so weird. But, I'm kind of like slumped over the wheel sometimes. Then just changing your posture, putting your shoulders back and like straightening up your posture, that will also do a really quick mindset shift of like, okay, some people call it a power stance. Some people just fix up their posture. Some people put their hands on their hips, or they put them like up in the air and do a stretch. But just fixing your posture right then and there, it could be at your desk at work, or like I said, in the car driving. It will also kind of tell your mind, okay, let's kind of lighten it up and switch it up. And then the last thing is smile. I was taught this so much as a kid, that I have to be smiling. And when you pass someone, a stranger, somewhere, you always want to smile, because you never know what other people are going through. And obviously, like me, you can read a lot on my face. I can wear my mood on my face a lot.
Same.
And so a lot of us do. So being just aware of that, and not being like fake and showing everyone, oh, I'm happy all the time. No, it's mainly, it's for you. It's a really quick shift of smiling, even though you don't feel like it. You can even smile when you cry. And, like let it all out. Smiling will really tell your mind we want to be sad, or like we have these negative thoughts, but it's going to shift your mindset of, okay, let's be happier. Let's be positive. Showing that to other people as well. And I've had this happen so many times. My sister is one of them. She's like, why do people smile at me? I was like, it's a nice thing to do. It's because it's contagious. Some people will take it off as weird because we're not used to it. We're so used to just being on our phones or being disconnected socially. And if you just give someone a simple smile, that can lighten up their whole mood. You have no idea the impact that has, not just on you and your mindset, but on other people as well. So take a deep breath, work on your breathing, posture, fix how you carry yourself. That goes to like be proud of who you are, and it works with your confidence. And then smile more, smile to to other people, smile to strangers, and smile even though you probably don't feel like it at that present moment, because it's going to make you feel better.
And as you were talking about, I noticed, especially like when I sat up, because I'm sitting at my desk right now. So as I sat up, it was much easier to take that big breath too. It's like that almost came together. I know smiling, and I would offer for people, this doesn't need to be like, again, an obligation or something that you have to do. It can even be incorporated the gratitude that we just talked about think about something that makes you smile. Intentionally bring that into your life and just smile about it. And that can certainly be helpful in that regard too. So I think those are very simple sorts of things that may not fill your cup or fix a really crappy day, but can also just help you recenter, ground yourself. Like you said, take a couple of breaths, being intentional, come back to the present moment. So if thoughts are spiraling, you're just breaking that connection even for a couple of minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing those. Tell us a little bit more about your podcast and where people can find it.
So yes, the Mommy Mindset podcast, you can find it anywhere you listen, Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well. No matter where you come from, I have something for everybody, so you can go give a listen.
All right, excellent. And as always, that will be linked in the show notes. So thank you to Analise Garcia for being with us today. Any final parting thoughts?
For people listening and they are feeling from an empty cup right now, or just feel empty and fulfilled, it's not permanent. It doesn't have to be. We really each have a strong purpose and being curious, not being stuck in the negative of, oh, I'm stuck here. And this is because those thoughts can easily come about, but just being curious of, oh, how would this look like? Or what am I capable of just being curious of your own abilities and purpose can open up so many more doors for you. But just knowing that you are meant to do something amazing, to reach more people, to impact others. So really finding your purpose, and the season that we feel like is super hard, it will pass. It's only temporary. Just keep going and know that you are meant for more.
Thank you. All right, listeners, thank you for your time today. I will be back next week. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Stop Overthinking podcast with Kristen Odegaard. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who would benefit from the message. To learn more about working with me and links to social media and free resources, head over to my website, coachwithkristen.com. That's Kristen spelled Kristen. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Have a great week.